The end of a 4-game road trip for the Fever, second night of a back-to-back for the Aces. These competitors will tell you no excuses. Boston keeps it for herself, attack mode and scores.
Aaliyah Boston is a huge part of that. Let's talk about matchups within the matchup. Boston and A'ja Wilson are going to be fun to watch because of how both of them handle and are a hub of the offense.
And both of these teams are known to come out of the gate strong, young, in and out, 1 and 2 in the league in first quarter points. Clark was the last game managing that back. Here's the goal.
Right out of the gate, the deep-looking shot, and so often, too, she likes her shots going to the left. That one, she was going to the right a little bit. Las Vegas understanding just how they need to pick her up deep, but that one,
well, didn't Caitlin tell us she was going to look for easy looks early? What happened to that? Maybe that was easy for easy look. Turnover Aces. The Aces, a wire-to-wire victory. Last night never trailed. Right now they do. Here's Caitlin.
And just continuing to step back, and you see how far out Wilson is on her still with the hand up. That just showcases the range of Caitlin Clark.
Fever close-out road trip. Aces battle fatigue in physical late-season clash. The Indiana Fever arrived in Las Vegas looking to cap off a 4-game road trip on a high note, while the defending champion Aces were playing the second half of a back-to-back, having blown out Phoenix by 48 points just 24 hours earlier. Both coaches made clear before tip-off that fatigue and quick turnarounds were no excuse for a lack of effort, and what followed was a hard-fought, physical, occasionally chippy affair between two of the league's most explosive offenses. A fast start sets the tone. From the opening possessions, it was clear this would be a track meet. Both teams rank among the league leaders in first-quarter scoring, and both come out with intent to establish tempo immediately. Caitlin Clark got Indiana moving early with a strong look despite normally favoring pull-ups going left. This one broke right instead, forcing Las Vegas to adjust how tightly they'd pressure her beyond the arc. Indiana's defense was locked in from the jump, dictating the types of shots Las Vegas was forced into, many of which played right into A'ja Wilson's comfort zone, an ongoing challenge for any Indiana defense trying to keep the 4-time MVP away from her preferred spots. Wilson showcased her expanding range early, pulling up from well beyond the arc with a hand in her face, a shot she's added confidently to her arsenal in recent seasons. Kelsey Mitchell, who entered the night in the midst of a scorching stretch, averaging around 22 points per game, and coming off a 29-point outing in Phoenix 2 nights prior, got loose in transition, but Las Vegas was quick to close driving lanes. Chelsea Gray got the Aces on the board with a smooth mid-range look, part of an evening in which she'd flashed the shooting touch, 39% from 3 on the season, that she'd set as a personal target coming into the year. Aaliyah Boston established her presence immediately as Indiana's offensive hub, both facilitating and scoring in transition. Her improved outside shot, now ranking among the league's better percentages from 3, has been the product of an off-season dedicated almost entirely to that skill, 5 days a week with her trainer after only a brief break following last season. Meanwhile, Jonquil Jones-style low-post activity from Nessa, Melissa/Neal Smith, in her first year with the Aces, provided Las Vegas easy interior offense. She and Wilson have quickly built real chemistry, feeding off each other in ways that boosted an Aces offense that already ranks near the top of the league in offensive rating due to sheer number of scoring threats on the floor. Kelsey Mitchell heats up. By the midpoint of the first quarter, Mitchell was fully in rhythm. Commentators noted she'd built a streak of 6 consecutive 20-point games, averaging north of 27 points across that stretch, largely because of her ability to score from all 3 levels. Coaches around the league, including Las Vegas' own staff, have repeatedly pointed to Mitchell and Kelsey Plum as 2 of the hardest guards in the WNBA to defend, citing her quickness, footwork, and explosiveness. Indiana's offense built off-ball movement and precise cutting, with Boston repeatedly finding teammates out of the post. A long outlet pass intended to spring a fast break sailed a bit too far, leading to a live ball turnover that visibly frustrated Aces coach Becky Hammon on the other end when Vegas failed to convert. Wilson, despite the turnover-forced possession, later punished a defensive switch by scoring inside, an example of the give-and-take connectivity she and Gray have built over years together. The game briefly tightened to a 2-point margin as both benches got involved. Indiana turned to reserves Damaris Dantas types and role players, while Las Vegas brought in Dana Evans, making her long-awaited season debut, and Kate Martin-type depth pieces like Sophie Cunningham and Tiffany Mitchell were used to keep energy up. Injuries, absences, and depth battles. A storyline that ran throughout the broadcast was roster construction on both sides. Indiana's Tyra Buss, referred to throughout as a steady, trusted veteran and near 40% three-point shooter, has started every game Clark has missed, and coach Stephanie White emphasized there was room for her to keep contributing minutes even once Clark works her way back into the primary role. Buss Harris, referred to as Ty Harris in the broadcast, was credited as pivotal in Indiana's prior win over Phoenix, and her presence allows Mitchell to slide off the ball more, something that clearly benefits Indiana's spacing. Sophie Cunningham, averaging around 9 points a game as an energy spark off Indiana's bench.
Such a great job just organizing the offense.
Mitchell gets the rebound. She's looking. Little change of pace. And Harris was pivotal in the win against Phoenix. Drills her first shot.
A big reason why is how she's been knocking down three-point shots with consistency, nearly 40% from deep. She's a vet, and Stephanie White has a great amount of trust in her.
Gray, poised here in attack mode. Can't finish, tips up her own miss. And Indiana has done this a few times. Gotten the basketball out of the rim quickly. Cunningham sets her feet. 3 for her.
And that was a deep one. And for Sophie Cunningham, who shot so well from 3 on the season, in her last 2 games, just 1 for 8. So good for her to see one go through early.
Cunningham averaging 9 points off the bench. Always an energy booster. There's Wilson. 4 points on the evening. You want to talk about the greatness of A'ja Wilson. We talk about her MVPs, her championships, gold medals. That jumper where she passed Lisa Leslie on the all-time scoring list. She's now 14th.
Be here all day if we go through her resume.
My goodness. Mitchell gets it back to Cunningham in the corner. She plays out of it. Tough shot, makes it. See the reaction there. 6-point deficit for the home team. Gray, kickball. Look who's coming in for Las Vegas for the first time this season. Dana Evans missed the first 23 games with a left leg injury. You hear the reception from the crowd.
A Dana Evans component for this Las Vegas Aces team. A 2-time WNBA champion, both with the Aces last year and with the Chicago Sky. We'll see how much she plays, but I'm sure a lot of it just getting some of that rust off.
Opened cold, just 1 make in her last 8 3-point attempts across the previous 2 games, before knocking down an early corner 3 to break the skid. It proved to be the first domino in what became an explosive scoring night for her. For Las Vegas, the emotional highlight of the evening was the return of guard Dana Evans, who had missed the first 23 games of the season with a left leg injury. She received a loud ovation from the home crowd upon checking in, understandable given she's a 2-time WNBA champion, having won titles both with the Aces and previously with the Chicago Sky. Hammond made clear beforehand that her only real objective for Evans's minutes was pain-free reintegration, not asking her to be a difference maker right away. Justine Pat, in just her second game with the Aces, and her first appearance the night before marked her actual WNBA debut, continued adjusting to a new system. She'd been a revelation the night before with 19 points on efficient shooting, but the broadcast noted she was still learning coverages and communication nuances, particularly regarding pick-and-roll reads, an adjustment that showed up on a defensive breakdown, allowing Indiana dribble penetration. Aces forward Monique Billings, in her first year in Las Vegas after time at UCLA, was noted as an emerging vocal leader for the group despite the newness of her role, something she said she recognized was necessary given the team's injury-related lineup shuffling throughout the year. Indiana builds cushion, officials get involved. Midway through the first quarter and into the second, Indiana methodically built its cushion. Clark, playing under a minute's restriction, with a targeted range of 20-25 minutes as she manages a back issue, found openings in ball screen actions, hitting top-in/Timpson-type cutters with sharp passes. One clever spacing sequence saw Vegas blitzing a Clark screen, only for a long, hopeful cross-court pass to sail out of bounds, another live turnover that again drew visible frustration from the Aces bench. 2 official reviews punctuated the period. The first came after Clark drew a foul from Gray and appeared to react strongly. Officials stopped play to review for a potential hostile act after the whistle. Analysts on the broadcast felt the contact, appearing to catch Clark across the forearm, was a legitimate basketball play by Gray rather than anything flagrant, and the ruling ultimately stood with the personal foul confirmed and no additional penalty assessed. The second review came on a physical post-up sequence involving Boston, initially whistled as an offensive foul, which the officiating crew, identified as Roy Gully, Amy Bonner and Ashley Gloss, opted to review for a potential upgrade. Slow-motion replay showed some incidental elbow contact.
Your full groups for all of these players, this matters.
And Becky Hammond said future Hall of Famers on this floor tonight. No lies told. Mitchell off balance. She is in double figures. Her 38th double-digit scoring game in a row. Melissa Smith, no good there. Sarah, on that last bucket, Kelsey Mitchell now moves all time for consecutive double-digit games in Indiana Fever history, passing the one and only Tamika Catchings. Oh, through contact.
Kelsey Mitchell is a special, special player. Speaking of that, Tamika Catchings, I got a chance to talk with earlier today as you see another beautiful feed by Boston as Kelsey Mitchell's on her way to the basket. And I said, hey, Catch, if Kelsey passes, she said, no, not if, when. And she said she just has loved watching the commitment she puts in every year to continue to get better, getting to her spots, her explosiveness. And she said, honestly, I'm just so thankful we've been able to witness her development since day one with the Fever and just couldn't be prouder.
9 years in the league for Kelsey Mitchell. All of them have been in Indiana. Watch this lead now by the Fever. Up by 13 points on the road against the reigning champs.
And look at those numbers of Kelsey Mitchell on the court and off the court. It's significant. And there's so many things that she could do with the ball in her hands. And again, in talking with Kelsey, she said, my biggest focus is my first 3 steps in getting to where I want to on the floor, Ashley.
Yeah, Sarah, and I love what she said. She
contact near Smith's face while Boston was establishing deep post position. Analysts felt it looked far more like a basketball play, Boston squaring up, staying wide and creating position, than anything flagrant, distinguishing the difference between unnecessary contact flagrant 1 and unnecessary and excessive contact flagrant 2 for viewers unfamiliar with the rule. After review, the offensive foul stood with no further penalty, drawing a bit of relief from the broadcast crew given how physical the sequence looked in real time. Mitchell takes over the first half. By the latter stages of the second quarter, Kelsey Mitchell had asserted herself as the story of the first half. She reached the free throw line repeatedly, extended Indiana's lead to as many as 14 points, and finished the half with 20 points on efficient shooting. Along the way, she passed franchise legend Tamika Catchings for the most consecutive double-digit scoring games in Fever history, a milestone Catchings herself spoke about warmly, saying she'd been certain it was a matter of when, not if, given how much Mitchell has grown in her 9 years, all spent in Indiana. Catchings praised Mitchell's continued devotion to refining her first 3 steps and getting to her spots, plus the joy she said she felt watching that development unfold from day one. Mitchell herself has talked about approaching every game with what she calls a playground mindset, treating the competition with the same freedom and joy of pick-up basketball with friends, while still emphasizing no wasted movement, a phrase that came up repeatedly when reporters asked about her habits and training regimen, which reportedly borrows footwork and acceleration drills more associated with football defensive backs than basketball guards. Aaliyah Wilson, meanwhile, was building her own quieter case. A mid-range jumper in the second quarter moved her past Lisa Leslie into 14th on the WNBA's all-time scoring list, a reminder, as the broadcast noted, that her resume, 4 MVPs, multiple championships, Olympic gold, could fill an entire broadcast on its own. Jackie Young also found her footing in the second quarter, connecting from 3 and continuing what's become a real point of growth in her game, an increasingly reliable outside shot to complement her downhill scoring. She extended a streak of 24 straight made free throws in the process. Indiana closed the half up 11, though Las Vegas got some free throw opportunities and grittier possessions in the final minutes, including a strong closing sequence from Ty Harris off the bench, who nonetheless picked up 2 fouls in the process. At intermission, Mitchell and Wilson had combined for 32 points, an indication of just how central both stars were to their respective offenses on the night. Locker room tone and third quarter response. The broadcast sideline reporting painted a clear picture of the mood in each locker room at the break. Indiana, despite the double-digit deficit erased earlier by Las Vegas mini-runs, had control of the tempo and the details. White's emphasis pregame had been squarely on defensive execution, and it showed. On the other side, assistant coach Ty Ellis characterized the mood as far from happy, telling reporters bluntly that Las Vegas hadn't been playing their style of basketball because they were shooting themselves in the foot, surrendering unnecessary defensive stops that fueled Indiana's transition game. Vegas came out of the locker room with intent, opening the third quarter on a run led by Jackie Young, who nailed another 3 and pushed her own total to 13 points, continuing that season-long trend of expanding range. For a stretch, Las Vegas cut the margin down to as close as 4 points, riding hustle plays from Wilson and Smith on the glass. But every time the deficit approached single digits, Indiana found an answer, often through Boston, who was in the middle of a monster all-around performance, or through timely offensive rebounding and putbacks from Wilson and Smith that kept possessions alive on the other end. A light-hearted moment came mid-quarter when the broadcast pair traded guesses about an unrelated MLB trivia question relating to Sunday Night Baseball's Dodgers-Yankees matchup. A brief comic aside amid an otherwise tense, physical basketball game before quickly returning focus to the court. Cunningham ignites, Indiana pulls away. The turning point of the game arrived late in the third quarter and carried into the fourth, powered largely by Sophie Cunningham. After her cold shooting stretch earlier in the season, she caught fire from 3, hitting shot after shot, eventually finishing with multiple triples in a strong bench scoring performance, 11 points off the bench through 3 quarters, building toward a bigger total by night's end, that helped Indiana build its largest lead of the game, ballooning to around 16, then 18, and eventually 20-plus points as the fourth quarter progressed. Analysts pointed to a specific and recurring theme: Las Vegas three-point shooting simply wasn't falling. Despite ranking among the most efficient three-point shooting teams in the league on the season, nearly 36%, the Aces were mired at a much lower clip through 3 quarters, a stark contrast to a Fever team hitting outside shots at a torrid rate, with 6 different Indiana players knocking down at least 1 3 by that point in the game. Indiana's defensive discipline in the paint was also repeatedly highlighted. The Fever rank among the league's better units at defending the three-point line, and it showed as Las Vegas struggled to generate the clean catch-and-shoot looks that fuel their normal offensive identity. Meanwhile, Indiana's ball security, an early point of emphasis given Las Vegas' transition scoring threat, largely held up. The few turnovers that did occur were mostly self-inflicted miscommunications rather than live ball takeaways created by Aces' pressure. Boston continued to anchor Indiana's offense as the hub, finishing with a stat line that included multiple threes, several assists, and a double-double built on rebounding and interior scoring, an emphatic response to being part of the Las Vegas team that eliminated Indiana in a Game 5 overtime thriller in the previous year's semifinals. That storyline hung over the entire broadcast. Multiple analysts noted this was a Fever team that has clearly used the sting of that playoff exit as motivation, and Wednesday night's dominant middle quarters stretch felt, in their words, like a message being sent. Perspective from both benches. Throughout the broadcast, reporters relayed insight from conversations with players and coaches earlier in the day. Becky Hammon, addressing her team during a timeout as Las Vegas trailed by double digits, urged her players to pick your head up, stressing that the aces could not continue trading baskets and needed defensive stops strung together, while offensively re-emphasizing ball movement and pushing pace, the identity that's carried the team to 3 championships in the last 4 seasons. Her message was consistent with pre-game comments about what she expects from her group every night: competitiveness, character, and above all, consistency, something she made clear was still a work in progress on this particular night given the quick turnaround. On the Indiana side, White's message throughout had centered on protecting the interior, containing dribble penetration into the paint, and not surrendering open catch-and-shoot threes, objectives her team largely met. Reporters noted how locked in the Fever appeared from the opening tip, crediting a week off before the road trip that allowed the team extra practice time, along with what players described as a bonding experience over the course of the 4-game trip itself. Mitchell in particular spoke about how valuable it had been to navigate stretches with and without Clark in the lineup, weathering outside noise, and building what she called a championship mindset as a group, sentiments echoed by White, who noted Mitchell has been noticeably more vocal this season than in seasons past, something teammates have responded to given the trust and long-standing relationships she has across the roster, including ties dating back to USA Basketball Youth National Team days and All-American showcases with several current teammates. Milestones and storylines. Several individual milestones stood out by the fourth quarter. Mitchell's big first half pushed her toward a 25-point night and gave her multiple 29-point outings in her last 2+ games entering the contest, cementing her status as a first-time WNBA All-Star starter this year despite being a 4-time All-Star overall. One of 3 Indiana starters, alongside Clark and Boston, headed to the All-Star game, a notable marker of the talent now residing on this roster. Wilson, despite an uncharacteristically inefficient shooting night by her standards, well below her typical clip from the field, continued competing hard defensively and on the glass, a reminder that her value extends well beyond scoring efficiency on any single night. Evans's aces return, while modest in box score terms, was framed as a long-term positive for a team about to enter a stretch with more rest. Las Vegas was noted as not playing again for roughly a week following this game, giving Evans and Pat both valuable time to further integrate. Fourth quarter formalities. With the outcome
A two-way player.
The only A'ja Wilson, the only WNBA player to have 4 MVPs. Let's confirm her.
Betsy Riley.
This is Clark's first trip to the free throw line so far this evening. Misses the first one, an 85% free throw shooter. This week on Sunday Night Baseball, Dodgers, Yankees, the MLB season heats up in the Bronx. Sunday Night Baseball live on NBC and Peacock. 8 points so far tonight for Caitlin Clark. Remember, her average is just over 20. Missed the last 3 of 4 games for the Fever with that back problem. Gray, step back. And the Aces have gotten as close as 4. She loves that move. Hauled down by Wilson.
And Jewel Lloyd read that. She was ready for that step-back shot to be coming over the top of the screen.
Young, fouled by Clark. Her third. 64-59. The number 1 team in the WNBA matched up against the 5th ranked team in the standings. We came off the top. Both of these groups have championship aspirations. Of course, the Aces have done it 3 times in the last 4 years. The Fever had a chip in 2012, but this group has yet to get to the finals. Evans, floater. Kelsey Mitchell has not scored in this second half. Remember, she had 20 in the first. Evans just pulls up.
And I know Evans hasn't hit her shots, but it's just great to see her back on the floor for Las Vegas, getting her legs under, getting her wind back, reacclimating herself here to this group.
Extra pressure here by Las Vegas. Mitchell gets through it. Speaking of baseball, she looks safe on that dive.
And a lot of the drills, we talk about the explosiveness, acceleration of Kelsey Mitchell. A lot of what she does is football drills, her work of staying low, how she drives her legs, the way she squares her shoulders, her ability to use those type of training and the quickness and the speed and the explosiveness we see.
And she's particular in those workouts. She says it's defensive back.
Largely decided, both coaches turned to bench units for the stretch run. Raven Johnson, the Aces' first-round pick this year out of South Carolina, with her college coach Dawn Staley reportedly in attendance, drawing a light-hearted, "Who is she rooting for?" exchange from the broadcast team, got extended run, continuing to work on translating her defensive tenacity into more confident offensive reads at the professional level, per specific instruction from her coaching staff, to make plays rather than simply run designed sets. For Indiana, reserves continued padding a commanding lead.
It was just really interesting to hear how she spoke about what they did in terms of really continuing to evolve as a group and as a unit.
Absolutely, Sarah. Kelsey Mitchell said this road trip has been pivotal for us as a team. It's been such a good experience in figuring out what a championship mindset looks like. Said the back-to-back they played, trying to figure out how to play with and without Caitlin, being able to respond to tension, sticking together when the outside noise is loud. So they have really figured out a lot about themselves and this team during this trip.
Kelsey Mitchell is such a calming voice. And Stephanie White said she's been more vocal this year. She said Kelsey Mitchell has talked more this season in half a season than she did all of last year. And those types of players, when they speak, people listen, people feel it. I feel her calming presence when we talk to her.
No question. And she just shows up and she hoops and she balls and she produces. But I think that's also a part of it, the steadiness that she brings in. You need that through the course of the season, and that's a part of it. And I also think just understanding that she's got such great relationships with so many players on this team and what that looks like. She was roommates with Maisha Hines-Allen at the 2016 McDonald's All-American game, roommates with Modi Billings for Team USA back in 2017. So this is long running, and it's those friendships and trust that grows.
Mitchell here with the basketball. Wilson on her. Clark behind the back pass. These two playing against one another. Just to the left. And Monique Billings, those extra efforts. Cunningham will get a fourth. It feels good. She's hunting them now.
She is. And you mentioned that, and a big reason why Indiana has won 3 of their last 4 games. And
that little battle between Lloyd and Cunningham gets called for the foul.
And there's no question.
With the Fever eclipsing the 100-point mark for the 8th time this season, well above their seasonal scoring average in the low 90s. It capped an emphatic response to a physically and emotionally taxing road trip that included a blowout loss to the Sparks the week prior, followed by a gritty win in Phoenix, and now this decisive road statement against the 2-time defending, 3-time champion in the last 4 years, Aces. By the horn, Indiana had built a lead that ballooned as high as roughly 20-plus points, a stark turnaround from the previous night, when Las Vegas had thumped Phoenix by a similar margin. For the Fever, the win closed out the road trip on the highest possible note, propelled by an early defensive identity, timely 3-point shooting led by Cunningham off the bench, and an all-around monster performance from Aaliyah Boston operating as facilitator, rebounder and scorer. Kelsey Mitchell's continued ascension as one of the league's most difficult covers, paired with the return of a healthy, deep rotation, has this Fever group playing its best stretch of basketball in recent memory, heading toward a home date with Golden State. For Las Vegas, the tougher truth was a team still finding its rhythm on the second night of a back-to-back, undone by uncharacteristically poor 3-point shooting and a handful of live turnovers that fueled Indiana's transition attack, even as encouraging developmental signs emerged from newcomers Justine Pat and a returning Dana Evans. With a week off before their next matchup in Toronto, the Aces will have time to regroup, sharpen communication in new pairings, and refocus on the defensive consistency Hammond has preached as the swing factor in any run toward a fourth title in 5 years.
Stephanie White called a timeout.
Icons.
Icons living. 2:30 to go here in the fourth.
You gonna sing for us?
You don't want that. Cunningham drills it. Matches a season high from the outside. 6'3", 20 points off the bench.
Indiana three-point shots. Cunningham's included as you look 6 of 7 for Sophie Cunningham alone, and 4 of 16 as a total for the Las Vegas Aces. I said this earlier. The efficiency is something that Las Vegas, you feel like you can always count on, whether from the field, from the three-point line. It hasn't necessarily been here tonight. You give credit to this Indiana defense. And
next Monday in Toronto.
We're going to be there, huh?
We will. See you in the 6. Johnson. Nice fade. Shot clock is off. Big contrast for the Aces from yesterday. Won by 48. Down significantly tonight.
Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video.